Good evening. If you've landed here, you've landed on Let's Talk News, and I'm your host, Leticia Remauro. I'm a little chilly again today, um, mostly because after working outside all day in 113 real field temperature, and then coming into the house and having the air conditioning on, man, it's a big shock to the body. But I'm here and I'm with you, and I'm excited to talk about birth tourism and whether or not our United States citizenship is up for sale. I'm sure that you've heard about the practice. It's been on many of the conservative news channels, not so much the legacy media. And that's interesting to me. It's interesting to me that the Supreme Court um, found that uh, birthright citizenship is a thing and that Congress needs to change um, the way it handles things if it wants to stop birthright citizenship. But I don't think that Congress would like to stop, I don't think anybody wants to stop people who are born and live in America from being Americans. I'm positive of that. What they're concerned with, and it's nothing new, by the way, is this big business that is occurring overseas from our enemies, from communist and authoritarian states, um, who are encouraging the practice of pregnant women or girlfriends getting an American visa in their ninth month of pregnancy and paying dearly to stay in a luxury hotel, um, so they can have their babies in America and collect an American birth certificate. Then take that baby and raise it in another country, loyal to another country. That's what the whole birthright citizenship thing is about. And oh, by the way, this practice, though it in the form that it is, might be new. Traveling, to another country to become a citizen of that country and have rights of that country, but it's a practice that has been going on for a long time amongst English nobles, back in far back as the thousands, and they called it what did they call it? Prima nocte, where they would take over a country by creating, by nobles having children with the women of that country. And but in that case, the noble would be raising the kid with their traditions within a country. You understand? A little different than birth with this birth tourism stuff. But anyway, I hope I didn't confuse you. I'll actually show you what I'm talking about. Hi, Kevin Wall from the other side of the world and the same side of the issues. Good to have you. Winter is coming over in Australia, huh? How is the weather over there? Hello, good evening, Kevin Young. Good to see you. Francine, good to see you. Angela, happy Thursday. How are you, Andrew? Good to have you. Hi, OG, Lucille Chavone. Good to have you. Gloria, you're with us early today. Good to have you. And my beautiful, beautiful Tammy Morton. Good to see you. I saw that you had an Amazon delivery of groceries that must have been hard for you to get in. That was a bundle out there. I was on your social media just before I jumped here. All right. So at any rate, let's show you why we're talking about this. Okay, we're talking about this birthright citizenship because the Supreme Court ruled, as I stated earlier, that whoever's born in America is an American citizen, period. And they said that if Congress wanted to change that, they'd have to change the Constitution or make legislation. And right now it's in Congress's hands. And I could understand because I guess they're finally interpreting the 14th Amendment, which was really specifically written to ensure that the children of slaves became American citizens. But it became nobody, I don't think, could ever envision that we would be able to travel the way we are now, and that there would be actual a business being made of foreigners becoming American citizens by being born, on American soil. I even last century, I don't think that we could have understood that to be the case. But as far back as the Obama administration, this began. 2013, it actually began. And I'm going to show you, this was an ad in China and a story. This story was in the AP in Irvine more than 11 years ago. Okay, and it was birth tourism ring across Southern California raided by federal agents. Industry helps Chinese women travel to U.S. to give birth to American babies. Crackdown targeted homes in 3 California counties. So this is happening. This is the ad, right, in China. And this was happening back then in 2013. It is estimated that there are anywhere from 250,000 to 500,000 babies who were born in America, who have an American birth certificate, being raised in a country that is not a democracy or a republic or free, fascist dictatorship, whether it's Russia, or China, or Cuba, or Iran. Between 250,000 and 500,000 babies since 2013 who came here through an ad and paid through the nose tens of thousands of dollars to have their baby here. A lot of people had a lot of things to say about the Supreme Court's decision, rightly so. And last night on the show, I said I thought that this was going to be heard again by the Supreme Court because of this ad. Okay, so this ad was just seen and posted on social media. And that was in a Texas, in Mission, Texas, the medical center had this ad. And as you can see, it is, the ad was in Mexico, it was a billboard in Mexico. And there, have my baby in Texas.com was the website. The website has since been taken down, but have a listen to what happened.
The Mission Regional Medical Center is under investigation by the State of Birth Tourism, Governor Greg Abbott announced today. He alleges the hospital is luring foreign nationals with, quote, birth packages to South Texas so they can secure birthright citizenship for their newborns. The Texas Health and Human Services Commission will lead the inquiry into the medical center. If the claims are true, the hospital will face sanctions and penalties, plus criminal prosecution. That reportedly advertised birth packages. Yesterday, Governor Greg Abbott announced an investigation into Mission Regional Medical Center for allegedly luring foreign nationals to South Texas with the ads so their babies can be born in the U.S. A spokesperson for the hospital said the marketing material is no longer in use because of an unintended misunderstanding. Last week, the high courts ruled against Trump's executive order seeking to end birthright citizenship. Trump's petition will need to be filed within 25 days of the court's decision.
So now we have new evidence of it. The hospital is saying that it was unintended misinterpretation, but I think that it was very much intended to capitalize on the Supreme Court's decision. Now, I'm asking you, who should be taking action here? Should Congress? Should the president? Should the people? Because, the one thing that we all have to remember is that if there's 500,000 people that are walking around with birth certificates since 2013, so they're estimating that it's like 25,000 a year. So 25,000 are 11 years old, 50,000 are have passed 10 years old. We're getting dangerously close to that 250,000 or 500,000 becoming 18 years old. And if they're 18, they can enlist in our military. They could get government contracts. They could get government jobs. They can come live here and bring their family members. There's so many things that they could do. And they can also start utilizing government grants and programs and taxpayer dollars to support themselves. My little joke was, well, they should be paying taxes if they're American citizens. But what if they just go on the dole? Has happened before. Hi, Karen. Good to have you. Hi, Professor. Good to have you. Hi, Wanzu. Kevin says all three. And so does Lucille. I think that the Congress really needs to step up here. I think that Johnson and Thune need to get their asses in gear and start talking about this, because it can't just be the conservative news stations that are talking about this. It must be that all the news stations talk about this, because this is dangerous in lots of ways. It's dangerous to our economy. It's dangerous to our safety, and it's not what was intended when the 14th Amendment was adopted. And that it makes a mockery, truly makes a mockery out of the Congress correcting a very hurtful wrong and declaring at one point in time that slaves, black men were only 3/5 of a person, and that slaves were not citizens. It makes a mockery. It literally, we talk about racism and all that stuff that's going on right now, but to have these people come in and have the rights of the same rights as the people who have swam shark infested waters to escape persecution by corrupt governments and dictatorships, and who have pledged their allegiance to America. It makes a mockery of the people who built this country and were not treated fairly, but they did, and they fought in wars and they died for American rights. It makes a mockery of the whole thing. So Congress needs to act fast, at least to make it illegal for somebody to, birth tourism to be illegal, so that there's some teeth in arresting people. Obama tried to do something supposedly, but nothing nothing really stuck. I mean, he did, I did read you that article. There were raids and things like that, but it was a lot of bluster and not a lot of substance. I'm not surprised. Kevin says, keep Barrett, Roberts, Sotomayor, and Jackson away from the next hearing. Yeah, mens REA if it's legal. Oh, mens REA. Oh, I don't know that it is with the Supreme Court. I got to be honest. But there is, obviously there's a mechanism. There's a cure, because if Trump files the appeal with the Supreme Court in 25 days, which I believe they did, especially now, and this is good. This is really good evidence for them to hear it and understand it. But I still think that Congress needs to act, in my opinion. I can't believe mens REA. Mens REA. Sorry, I'm just I'm losing my mind. They come in and don't assimilate, but they don't come in, Karen. That's the whole thing with birth tourism. They literally come, have the baby, get the birth certificate, go back to their country, and those children are raised to be loyal to the country in which their parents live, not to America. So it's an invasion, is what it is. Actus Reus. I don't know what that is. I have to say, I'm not familiar enough with legal terms to know what that is. So, Professor, maybe you can help us. Put Ted Cruz in the Supreme Court as the Chief Justice. Yeah, if only it was that easy. Remove Roberts. But why isn't Congress acting? I can understand the Supreme Court decision. I can understand it because their job is to interpret the Constitution. And I was a parliamentarian, and I recall that the training was, if the document that is governing you is silent on a subject, then you presume that it is allowed. It's silent on birth tourism. It's, if you're born on American soil, you're American. And it doesn't say that if your parents came here illegally, you're not American. I don't remember why the consulate, people from other countries who are born, have children in America, their children belong to that country. They don't belong to America. And I'm not quite sure why, because the soil is the council, the consulate is the soil of the country that it is established. But if they're born in a hospital, is it a choice? I'm not sure. Born here, then live here and pay taxes. Agreed. The 4 judges had to be paid off. Again, you know what? Let's read the 14th Amendment and let's see what all you say. 14th Amendment. Let's read it together. All right. Hold on a second. Let me get to here. And let me share my screen. Let's read it together. So, because I think that we need to familiarize ourselves. Oh, by the way, Gloria, that was bogus about last night. I told you I would investigate. It was absolutely bogus. The Mamdani didn't get banned from Katz's Deli. He didn't go to Katz's Deli with pro-Palestine people. I didn't think they would, because I didn't think that they would support a Jewish business. So anyway, it was false. Okay. Ratified in 1868 following the Civil War, the 14th Amendment is one of the most consequential additions to the U.S. Constitution. It established birthright citizenship, guaranteed equal protection and due process under law, and barred former insurrectionists from holding public office. The amendment contains 5 distinct sections, primarily designed to protect the civil rights of formerly enslaved Black Americans. Section 1, Civil Rights and Citizenship. This is the most frequently cited section. It includes the Citizenship Clause, guaranteeing citizenship to all born or naturalized in the U.S. The Due Process Clause, prohibiting states from depriving any person of life, liberty, or property without fair procedures, and the Equal Protection Clause, prohibiting states from denying anyone equal protection of the laws. Section 2, Apportionment, address the apportionment of representatives to the Congress, formally superseding the 3/5 compromise. Section 3, insurrection is banned, disqualifies any federal or state official who took an oath to uphold the Constitution and subsequently engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the United States from holding future office. That is why they tried to get Donald Trump on insurrection for January 6th, because they didn't want him coming back, by the way, and anybody involved in the January 6th protest. Just remember that clause. That's why the lunatic left was trying to do that. Section 4, debt, declared the validity of the federal debt and forbade the federal or state governments from paying off Confederate debts or compensating former enslavers for the loss of enslaved people. Section 5, enforcement, expressly grants Congress the power to enforce the provisions of the amendment through appropriate legislation. Let's see, where is the actual text? I think this is it. Let's see. Yeah. 14th Amendment. All persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of laws. Now, here's where it sticks for me. All persons born or naturalized in the United States, comma, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, comma. Those words, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. To me, those words, and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, means that if you're not living here, then you're not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. If you're living abroad, you're subject to the jurisdiction of where you're living. So if that child never steps foot on an American soil until he or she is 18, they have not been subject of the jurisdiction thereof. That would be my argument as a lawyer, but then again, I didn't know what actus reus was, so I don't know. Okay, you have lots to say. Only slaves. It's not only slaves, as we just read, but I know I'm a little bit behind with this. If you get birth citizenship, then they must live here or lose it. That's right. Agreed. But the intent at the time was that they stay, not leave. Exactly, Lucille. There are no slaves now. You are absolutely right, but that doesn't nullify the amendment. You know, the only way to get rid of an amendment is to have a constitutional convention. And there is fear around that because of so much foreign influence and so much money influencing what would happen with the Constitution. I mean, it's almost certain that you would have the loss of the Second Amendment and maybe even the First, because we're seeing that. We saw that with COVID. All right, so here, this guy might explain birth tourism better than I did.
This is sort of the industrial scale exploitation of birthright citizenship, right? This is the interpretation of the 14th Amendment that says if you are born here, if you get here by hook or by crook, it doesn't matter how long you're here, if your child is born here, they become a citizen of the United States. And again, I think if this was a question, Cliff, of somebody who came across the border 20 years ago, they've made a life here, they pay their taxes, they're responsible citizens, they had 2 children here, I'm not sure we would be having this big question on birthright citizenship. The problem is what the Chinese call birth tourism. And this is a massive industry in China, industrial scale, that is actually pushed and encouraged and embraced by the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party started running articles in the People's Daily in 2013 explaining to members of the elite, if you fly your wife or girlfriend to the United States, you can get U.S. citizenship for them, bring them back to China, and raise them in China. But when they turn 18, even though they've been educated in China, they live here, they're members of the CCP elite, they will be able to vote in American elections. They'll be able to get government jobs. They'll be able to have all these benefits, and they'll be able to sponsor you, their parents, to get permanent resident status. The mystery is, and I think I know the answer, the mystery is, why would the Chinese Communist Party be encouraging members of its own elite to do this? And more to the point, why would they allow an industry with more than 500 birth or tourism companies to openly advertise this in China, where they have a controlled media, where they could shut this down overnight?
So why? Because you don't get out of China unless Xi says so, or the CCP says so. So why? Here's a clip from, watch.
When any common girl inhabiting their lands is married, our nobles shall have sexual rights to her on the night of her wedding. If we can't get them out, we'll breed them out.
If we can't get them out, we'll breed them out. Prima nocte. That was from Braveheart. And that was King Edward the Lionheart. No, King Edward Longshanks, sorry. Yeah, that was a practice. But the difference is that they send the nobles to the country to rule the country on behalf of the king. And then they would breed with the locals to bring English blood into the locals. The Vikings did the same. It was a practice. So this is kind of opposite. We're going to fly people into America, have baby on American soil, get the American birth certificate, raise them in a different country, hating America, then send them back to what? Spy on America, vote the way we want in American elections, or more likely, spy definitely, more likely is to take it over, right? Take it over. That's more likely. And our founding fathers said that if we lose America, it will be from the inside out, not from the outside in. And that's what's happening, because in our verve to right the wrongs that every country committed, and don't let anybody lie to you, but the wrongs of our forefathers, and we are now so worried about being called racist or xenophobic, unless of course it's Jewish people, and then that's a whole different story, right? According to the Democrats. But we're killing ourselves. We're tripping over ourselves to give away our country and to say that we're bad. We have come to this is a pinnacle moment in American history, and we could go either way here. We really can. And I am happy to know that we are going to fight this in the Supreme Court, but I don't think that we should rest on our laurels. I think that Johnson and Thune have to get off their asses, and they have to do something about this. Make it illegal. Make birth tourism illegal, and deny anyone a birth certificate, because then they'd have to come over and fight. Somebody, and probably Neville Roy Singham, would have to come over here or sponsor the money to come over here and fight. And then we could really get into the nitty gritty of why it's happening. But open up that can of worms. Open it up. Pass the law. If the law is unconstitutional, it have to be heard by the Supreme Court. Let's get it on every level that we possibly can. And if the states want to, pass laws saying that it's not allowed, that they, because the birth certificates are issued by the Department of Health of the state. So the Department of Health of the state can deny that birth certificate, and then they'd have to be taken to court and have to go all the way to the Supreme Court for it to be overturned. But I think that if we're moving on every level, that will protect America right now. And speaking of protecting America, I don't know if you all saw that yesterday. I think we talked about it, that Trump had to, well, I'm not going to say had to. Trump had the Qatari Air Force One, the one that the Qatari government donated. He flew over to Turkey in it, and then he flew home in Air Force One proper, the one that was built in America. And, there's a brouhaha about whether his life was threatened. It wasn't threatened. There was a problem with the plane. There wasn't a problem with the plane. The White House says that it left the new plane for the Army, I think, for the military to look it over and to take a look at it. Others in the Secret Service are leaking to the press that there was some sort of threat against Trump. Whatever it was, here's what I believe it is. I'm not going to say I know, but I know. I think you know too. And Trump was talking an awful lot about being assassinated yesterday. He was talking an awful lot about having a price on his head, and he was talking an awful lot about, maybe they'll succeed at some point. So that sounds to me like somebody who recently found out that he got close to death again. They're not going to stop. And when I say they, I don't mean foreign governments. I mean, I've said it before. There are our own spooks and spies and demons inside our government that's been trying to undermine it, and they're trying to unalive this man. And I am just praying that he is more like the Archangel Michael, and that he survives it all and he gets us through the other side, because he is uncovering more shenanigans in just his short time as president than we've ever seen before. Our government is the curtain that our government has operated behind is opening. It's falling apart, and we're getting to see who the swamp creatures are, and they're both Republican and Democrat. So anyway, I ask all of you to write to Johnson and Thune, and let's talk about this. Let's get some legislation against birth tourism. It's important. It's as important as the Save America Act. That needs to be passed too. So while you're at it, if you're going to call the office or write, make sure you remind them to pass the Save America Act. Johnson did his job, but now it's Thune. Yeah, we got issues. Our founding fathers did everything they could to give us the most perfect union they could put together. Let's not throw it away like spoiled children that we are. Okay, everybody. That's it for this week. I will see you all on Tuesday. Let's see. I'm sorry, Kevin, you're going to have the last word tonight. Then what he is saying should not be allowed. Right. It shouldn't be allowed, but it is. I mean, it is. And again, if you interpret the Constitution, the jurisdiction, and live under the jurisdiction thereof, that's or subject and are subject to the jurisdiction thereof, is what, in my opinion, negates this tourism stuff. And I think that if Congress writes the bill that way, passes the bill that way, makes it a law, then that has to be interpreted by the Supreme Court, and that will stand, because and are subject to the jurisdiction thereof. You can clearly prove that if you have the baby, take the baby and the birth certificate away for 18 years and then come back, you're not subject to the jurisdiction thereof. you're subject to a different jurisdiction. I think that will pass the Supreme Court. That's what I think. Make that illegal to China. Well, you're right about that. That could be part of the negotiations for sanctions and tariffs and all that other stuff. But Congress has to do something. When are we going to have military tribunal courts to get our traitors? Oh, honey, that would probably take, in my opinion, honestly, how many traitors there are in this nation right now. I would say that we have a good amount of people, maybe 30% living in America right now are traitorous. And that's scary. And how do you, and with socialism, I think the act of wanting a socialist government is traitorous, because that is what our founding fathers said absolutely no. So if you're supporting socialism or communism or any of that stuff, then aren't you a traitor? If you prefer a different country over your own, isn't that traitors? We have the right to elect whoever we want, but we don't have the right to change the government that governs us. And that's a constitutional republic, but that socialists want to get rid of that declaration of that constitution, rather, and that Bill of Rights. So I think that there are about 30% of Americans are leaning towards communism and socialism. And that's not anything new, because we had that in the 1940s and 50s too. So it's been going on for a long time. How do you have a tribunal for that? Are there enough people? I don't know. Following law with illegal intent. We don't say it enough, Leticia. Thank you for all you do. Oh, thank you so much, Angela. The RICO Act. Well, yeah, I think that the RICO Act would apply. I think that if Congress passes the law to ban it, because to ban anybody who is not subject of the jurisdiction thereof, then that has to go to the Supreme Court. We need to fight this on every level. And just Congress needs to get off their fucking ass. Is all I ever hear is, oh, Congress is adjourning. Congress is adjourning. I mean, I'd rather them be adjourned, because when they're in session, we get fucked. But on this one, I need them working. We all need them working. We got lots of machine guns to gun them down. Yeah, but who's the we? Who's the we? I mean... That's the whole thing. I get where you're coming from, Kevin. I get it. But, violence is not always the answer. Because remember, they have a lot more money than we do. Look, I'm not shying away from anything, but you can't just, I'm not one for just getting rid of anybody that doesn't agree with me. And I don't think you are either. I don't think that's what you're asking for. But there's a lot of foreign influence here, and you don't know what they have. We just don't know. Well, the military, I get what you're saying, but we have problems within the military too. Remember, men were wearing dresses in the military. The men in dresses were controlling the military just 3 short years ago. No, I agree. We can't have a red dawn. This America is going to the dog's glad. I'm 74 years old and won't live long to see this country destroyed. Well, here's my crazy thought. And I said it to my husband. I might have said it to you all. I think that they should let over 65 join the military. I think they should let us enlist. We can't backpack, we can't run through the sand with, 100-pound pack on our backs. We're too old for that shit, but we're smart. We're smart. And a couple of us can shoot pretty straight. I think that we, the senior citizens of America, need to save it for our grandchildren. I do. I mean, we had the benefit of a free America. These kids are not going to. I think that we have to be in the military. We can't just trust the kids to do it. even the kids that want to be there, because the military is different now than it was, back in the greatest generation, right? Back in World War One and World War Two, and even the Korean War. Vietnam was a fucking disaster zone. The Gulf Wars were better. But look at the burn pits. Look at how many of our soldiers are still suffering because we didn't give a shit enough about them. So I think that it's time for the grown-ups to take this one. That's what I think. And I swear to God, if they'd let us, I'd enlist tomorrow, because I think it's up to us to save America. I do. I think it's up to the old people. I might be crazy, but so I'm going to leave you on that. Could you imagine us grannies on a tank? That would be, we could do damage, especially the menopausal ones. Oh my God, forget it. You've seen us grannies if you cut in front of us online, when we're waiting for cold cuts. We could freaking take down a country. I still think grandmas should be in Congress to save our grandchildren. All right, I'm with you. Congress, military, all of it. They need to go back and talk to the old people. That's what I think. And I've been saying this forever, that this revolution is going to be, we the grannies and grandpas are going to put down the young kids who want to tear apart what took 250 years to build. No, absolutely no. I don't believe those grannies, running around in the Mamdani socialism fog. No, let us get at them. Okay, guys and gals, we're way over. I will see you on Tuesday. Thanks for watching. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe. We are 118 away from our target 1,000. So please share it. Not so much on Facebook, YouTube. I need you to share the YouTube link. Let's try and get those 118, because once I hit the 1,000, then YouTube sends it out all over the place. I got so close, and then YouTube took everything back and changed my format, which is what they did the last 7 times. So let's try it. We're almost there. I've really been good. I've tried not to piss YouTube off, but let's see. Love you all. See you on Tuesday, unless something big happens.